Paulie Malignaggi is the most slanderous bum in boxing.
I do have something against him. I think he cheated. So I do have something against him. I think he made his name off cheating. So, I'm entitled to that opinion. It's a very educated opinion. It's a much more educated opinion than anybody else is going to offset that opinion. Anybody else who tries to offset that opinion doesn't really have anything educated to offset it with. So if you are that kind of garbage person to put an opponent's life more in danger by putting PEDs in your system.
Over the past several years, possibly since he pledged allegiance and vowed eternal loyalty to the Al Haymon and Floyd Mayweather cult.
Tom Schreck is a New York judge that was in Al Haymon's pocket. It's very simple. 117, 111 was a joke, man. Disgraceful. That was a joke.
Paulie has dedicated his existence to discrediting the all-time great Manny Pacquiao. Most recently, in between discrediting other two champions like Gennady Golovkin, in which Paulie stated, "Does someone really have to get hurt for people to start to understand how crazy the lack of respect for weight classes in boxing is getting?" Paulie left out the fact that Adrian Broner jumped up 2 weight classes and beat his ass and took his girl.
I'm good. I beat Paulie. I left with his belt and his girl.
Adrian, congratulations on winning the title. Paulie, come on in.
Hey, I'm just saying, you lost.
I know I lost.
But hold on, wait.
But don't brag about taking my side piece. Don't brag about taking my side piece, though. That's my side piece. You don't get laid.
In any event, most recently, Paulie stated that Manny is a stone-cold cheater. As always, Paulie has no proof and is merely resorting to slanderous tactics in hopes of overcoming his inferiority complex of the Filipino congressman. However, first of all, before we get started with Pacquiao, let's talk about Paulie's suspect transformation since he began receiving guidance under the known PED pusher Memo Heredia. Quite the body transformation at age 35. You should write a book on how you were able to transform your body at the age of 35. Anyway, it's known that testosterone levels in males begin to diminish as you age. Generally speaking, this drop begins around age 30 and continues to decline from there. Now, when Manny was running through other opponents in his heyday and destroying opponents in ways that Malignaggi can only dream of. But here's the thing. When you take anabolic steroids, a person's body stops or slows down of the natural production of testosterone. So common logic says that if Manny was juiced up during his whole career, as Paulie claims, then his last and most recent several fights should have been by a washed up, shot fighter. The fact that Manny is in his late 30s should mean that his testosterone is on the decline. And when you accompany the fact that, as Paulie's accusing, he was using steroids during his prime, his natural production should have shut down in his ability to produce his own testosterone.
There's not a single boxer in this sport that I've talked to that thinks that guy did it clean, what he did. Not a single one, literally. In the privacy of our conversations as fighters, the brotherhood of fighters, I have not spoken to a single fighter that thinks Manny Pacquiao did what he did and he did it clean. Not one. I think it's pretty common knowledge. But either way, the opinions of me are based on the fact of what I see in my observations.
As you see in almost all sports, especially combat sports, a lot of guys get pinched for taking PEDs at the end of their careers. Either one, because they just can't produce their own testosterone through no fault of their own, just due to nature or natural causes of old age. Number 2, they have damaged their bodies from using PEDs during their prime, and now they are unable to produce their own testosterone naturally. The concept of no free lunch. You have to pay now for the benefits you receive from using the juice in the past. So we look at Pacquiao over the past 4 fights. Now keep in mind he has been heavily tested during the past several years. and was probably the most tested boxer in history, leading up to his fight against Mayweather. It seems like they were testing Manny every day leading up to the Mayweather fight. If there had been anything in the system, USADA would have surely found it. Pacquiao has also been tested using VADA, which is considered the golden standard.
VADA is doing the testing. Bradley will probably stop Pacquiao. That's my opinion. Bradley, actually, if he doesn't stop him, he beats the shit out of him.
So
Bradley, all day.
yeah,
Bradley, all day. VADA testing, right? They're doing VADA testing?
Yeah. Right.
They're doing VADA testing. Tim Bradley, all day.
Paulie.
In none of these tests did Manny produce positive results. There was never anything even slightly suspicious found in any of these results. Furthermore, as a side note, Manny was allowed to take anti-inflammatories from his torn rotator cuff. USADA had granted him permission. But instead of just injecting the shot before his fight against Mayweather, Manny sought permission from the Nevada State Athletic Commission, even though he was already granted permission. This further exemplifies that Manny is a clean and honest fighter. Nothing to hide. In any event, if Manny had used PEDs in the past, he most likely would be paying for using them now that he is approaching 40 years of age. However, against Bradley in their third fight, Manny looked spectacular. He showed no signs of someone who had destroyed their body by injecting anabolic testosterone in their system. Now, as a side note, if you want to talk about someone who really looks suspect, it's the Magic Man himself. At the age of 35, he has more muscles than he ever has. Is this newfound bulk a result of seeking nutritional and strength and conditioning advice from the PED pusher Memo Heredia, or is it just a blessing from above? But the fact of the matter is, Paulie could take all the juice in the world and never be able to box like Manny. Steroids improve your natural gifts, and Paulie's just a journeyman. If all you needed to take was steroids to be an 8-division champion, then everyone would be an 8-division champion. Okay, so back to comparing Manny then to Manny now. People like Paulie are trying to convince the gullibles that Manny had this one-shot knockout power because of the roids. But Manny was wearing people down, forcing them to quit. Other than Hatton, who did Manny really flatten? So let's talk about his last 4 fights. So most recently, Manny fought top welterweight Timothy Bradley. Now, no disrespect to Tim Bradley, but Manny ran circles around him, won by unanimous decision, and captured the WBO belt. Now, as a side note, the C-level journeyman Paulie Malignaggi predicted Tim would beat the shit out of Manny in their second battle. Unfortunately for Paulie, Manny won by unanimous decision in that bout as well. Now, in Pacquiao's fight against the alleged pound for pound all-time great, in which Manny lost by unanimous decision, leading up to this fight, Manny suffered a torn rotator cuff and severely injured it during the 4th round of the fight. Now, we know that Manny later had surgery on his shoulder to repair this tear. We all know how that Paulie stated that Manny's injury was a fraud and it required no surgery. But what can you expect from a jealous, slanderous bum like Paulie Malignaggi? But the other point is that Manny did exceptionally well against the much bigger and heavier Mayweather, considering that he not only had full functionality of his arms, but the key takeaway in the fight was Manny was able to keep a high pace against Floyd and display awesome defense and land the more devastating punches in the fight. The most alarming part was that Manny was able to naturally, with no artificial gas in his system, keep up with Mayweather. Now, Floyd, on the other hand, was caught red-handed using a prohibited IV the night before the fight. For all practical purposes, athletes IV rehydrate to mass use of EPOs along with other banned substances. EPO is a synthetic version of a naturally occurring hormone which is used to boost red blood cell count. This process supercharges endurance by increasing muscle oxygen carrying capacity. This may explain why Floyd seemed to have more energy at the age of almost 40 than he did when he was 20. Furthermore, it is common knowledge that injecting saline will dilute a cheater's blood, so their synthetic EPO is not detectable by the test. Now, the sad part about this is that Travis Tygart, the CEO of USADA, is an expert of EPO in the process of masking it with an IV. Tygart spent a large portion of his career researching and trying to prove that Lance Armstrong was blood doping. Tygart knows exactly what an IV is used for and how Floyd, using it the night before the biggest fight of his life against Manny Pacquiao, was a major violation of the WADA procedures. What's even more troubling is that Paulie is a journeyman who promotes himself as a boxing analyst and advocate for a clean sport, yet he had nothing to say about Floyd using this IV the night before the biggest fight of his life, nor did he have anything to say about USADA allowing a TUE nearly 3 weeks after the violation. In any event, Manny was heavily tested for the fight and was able to hold his own in the ring against Mayweather. Now, when I watched the fight, this really pissed me off. See how Floyd is drinking some suspect red liquid? Might be Gatorade, but it also might not be. Kind of reminded me of, right here we're hearing Father Senior saying that Floyd's losing, but anyways, it reminded me kind of with Alex Rodriguez, how he had those gummy bears that you would take and it would increase your testosterone for exactly 4 or 5 hours, whatever the length of a baseball game is, and then it would go back. I mean, I'm not saying that's what Floyd is doing, but how many boxers do you know that are allowed to drink Gatorade or some other strange substance? Here's freaking Bayless telling him to, Freddie Roach said watch the elbows. No, you're the ref, you watch the elbows. Anyways, I mean, this to me is completely creating an uneven playing field. Dude's drinking something. Even if it's Gatorade, it's a huge advantage over just drinking water. Now here's Manny. We don't know exactly what it is, but because he poured it on his body and he drank it, it probably isn't Gatorade. Gatorade has sugar and make your body really sticky. Anyway, here's Floyd again. Unbelievable. Again, if Manny was on the juice, now would be the time to use it. When you're approaching 40 years of age, or against Floyd when he was entering the biggest fight of his life. Kind of like what Floyd did by using an IV, right? Right, Paulie? Before the Mayweather fight, Manny fought at the time the WBO junior welterweight champion Chris Algieri. During this fight, Manny knocked down Algieri 6 times and won by a unanimous landslide. The key point to note is that the fight could have been stopped several times during the beating Manny was putting on Algieri. However, this was totally up to the ref's discretion, in the exact same way that it was up to the ref's discretion when the fight was stopped in round 12 against Miguel Cotto. This fight could have easily went the distance, just like Chris Algieri. Now, if you look at Manny's career, the only guy he stopped cold was Ricky Hatton. And I'm assuming Paulie the bitch is not questioning the malnutritioned Pacquiao who fought at flyweight up to super featherweight. It seems like Paulie is only butthurt when discussing the light welterweight and welterweight divisions that he got destroyed in every time he faced someone that was semi-decent. I just explained how the fight with Algieri could have been stopped just as easily as the fight against Miguel Cotto was stopped. Now, De La Hoya just quit on the stool. We know what happened to Clottey, Margarito, Mosley, which were all taken to the decision. Granted, Margarito should have been stopped. I mean, the guy permanently damaged his eye. But like we have already established, after the age of 30, most people's testosterone and strength and power begins to deteriorate naturally. except for Paulie, of course, who seems to be getting bigger. But when Manny fought Hatton, Cotto, Clottey, Margarito, he was at his physical prime. So common sense will tell you Manny has lost some power, some speed, and some strength due to the natural progression of aging. That's common sense. It happens to everyone. Again, except for Paulie. Even the great Mike Tyson lost his power when he aged. The key difference is that Manny was able to transition to somewhat of a finesse boxer, whereas Tyson couldn't. I don't understand why this dumb fuck Paulie is so slanderous towards Manny Pacquiao. Possibly doesn't understand that Manny is still fighting at welterweight and performing at a very high level, even though he is in his late 30s and is getting heavily tested. Shit, now would be the time to take roids, if that was what Manny wanted to do. I mean, I could kind of see Paulie's point if Manny jumped up to welterweight, got huge, destroyed the competition, then shriveled up and went back down to super bantamweight. But the guy is old, nearly 40, and still competing at the top welterweight division, if of course he comes out of retirement. And that's with him being heavily tested by the anti-doping agencies. But the really bullshit part is that before the May-Pacquiao fight, Paulie had the chance to interview Freddie and Manny, and he never said shit about PEDs to their face. I mean, Paulie did the same exact thing to Sean Porter, slandering his name behind his back. He talked shit when Sean wasn't in his presence, then turned into a bitch when Kenny and Sean approached him about it. Now look at Paulie. No one wants to shake his hand. Kenny came to check his ass. So the question is, why does this bum continue to slander Manny with absolutely no proof? Is it because Manny's an 8-division champ? Is it because he is instructed to do so? Because he is a member of the cult of the Al Heyman and Floyd Mayweather congregation? Does he have something against Filipinos? Did a Filipino girl break his heart, kind of like Jessica did? We may never know, but this video is just to exemplify and prove why Paulie Malignaggi is the most slanderous bum in boxing. Thanks for listening. You guys have a great day.
Boxing's always full of shit, man. It's always politics in this thing, man. The fans can never go home happy. You know what I mean? You get a great show, and then always get spoiled with some BS.
If I don't ask you
like
this question, people are going to be upset. Are you saying this fight was fixed? Is this a path you really want to go down?
I'm not saying it was fixed, but it's always the politically more connected fighter gets the close decisions, and this was no different. That's what I'm saying. It always happens. It always happens.